I'm your host, Nick Ginsberg, and you're listening to The Open Drive, a podcast focusing on authentic living and defining your own path against the odds. Hi everyone, welcome back. I've had a little break away from recording, but I'm back at it and I'm very excited to get recording these episodes again. As I've mentioned, I really enjoy this. It's like a little journal for me to be able to talk really at you guys. So thank you. Thank you for joining. Welcome back to The Open Drive. I want to thank you first of all for coming back and for listening. If you're new here, welcome. This is a podcast where I get to talk about my life. I get to talk about my childhood, lessons I've learned, all of that. So welcome. Just a warning, if you are new here and this is your first episode that you're listening to, this podcast does cover off on some pretty heavy topics. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. So it does talk about childhood trauma, it talks about addiction, mental health, it talks about all of that stuff. So it can get a little heavy, but I like to keep it light and fresh and fun. So just a fair warning. Now, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you head over to Instagram and follow me there, which is where I post all of my podcast related stuff. I also post a little bit on Twitter, but Instagram is my main one. So my Instagram is nice and easy. It's at Nick Ginsberg, or one word, no underscores, nothing like that. So come and join us over there. And when you do, please make sure you drop me a DM. Let me know that you're following and what episode you listen to, and share your story with me, because I want this to really be a two-way street. It's very important that we create a community. It's important to me that we create a community. And so I would love to hear from you all. Now, I said at the beginning, I've taken some time, and I took some time because I still needed to process and really get my head around everything that has been happening. As you know, if you've listened, my mum passed away in April this year, and I have been on that grief roller coaster, and I'm sure if you have lost a loved one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was my mum's birthday towards the end of June, and so it was really important that I sort of stop and take a minute and make sure that I was okay, and make sure that I was giving myself a chance to really feel everything that I needed to feel. And I wanted to really take this episode to share a few things and also to remind you really of why I want to share my story, which is around this notion that you get to control your life. You get to create your own path in life. Your experiences don't dictate where you end up. So I want to make sure that I want to update you on that and talk about that. So buckle up. So since our last episode, I went and got another tattoo. Now, if you are listening to this and you know me at work or from any of conferences or anything like that, you may not know that I have tattoos. And I do. I have a few. They're mostly in places that I can quite easily hide. The tattoos for me are for me and me only. I don't particularly care if anybody likes them. They're for me, and they represent a period of my life and a moment in my life or a person in my life that is really important. So I have a handful, and I got a new one. Last week on my thigh, and it's for my mum, and it is an owl. So she was obsessed with owls. They were all over her room, and so I got one for her on my right thigh, and it's incredible. So it's healing currently, but the tattoo artist Andrew is just incredible, and he did a phenomenal job. I will share pictures towards the end of next week on my Instagram. I'll share some stuff so that you can see that tattoo, but that was really meaningful for me, and it was something that I really wanted to get done. as I said, it is for no one else but me, which is why it's on my thigh, partly. The chances of you seeing my thigh are pretty slim. But I wanted to get that for her, so that was really important. So that's exciting. That's been a really cool little update. So we've got some goodish news. Louisa's scans for cancer have been pretty good. So it didn't grow too fast, which is really good news. We weren't sure how fast the cancer would be spreading. The life expectancy is still probably 2 years, but it's really, really, really good news that it's not spreading as fast as we thought it could be, and so she is comfortable, which is great, which is really good news. Now on to what I wanted to discuss. And that is that your experiences do not get to dictate where you end up in life. I think a lot of the times people will see the life around them and see what their friends or family or parents or whoever it is, whatever those experiences are that make up that, they see that as, oh, well, this is what life is, and therefore that is what I will be. Right? There are so many different experiences that can dictate your life and can try and dictate your life. And I'm not going to go through all of those because we all have our own life and our own experiences. So I want to talk about this really in terms of me and what I did and how I managed to sort of focus around that. And hopefully you can implement some of that in your own life if this is something that you feel you need to do in terms of creating your own path and stepping out from your experiences that you've had. So if you've listened to the podcast, you would know my experiences. So I grew up, I had two mums, which funnily enough was not one of the experiences that were dictating my life. But both of them really struggled with their mental health. They also really struggled with addiction. And therefore my childhood was quite traumatic. Lots of things happened. I was abandoned when I was 13. Lots of trauma around self-worth and sort of making sure that people were viewing my family in the light I wanted them to, sort of that perception management. But if I was to follow that path of what my experiences had shown me, this is where I would be. I would be probably jobless. I would be living off Centrelink. I would have addiction issues. I would probably be struggling quite badly with my mental health. And I would still be living on the Gold Coast. And that is not a bad thing. I just want to put that out there. But that's where I would be. And that is not where I am. I'm the opposite of that. So when I was younger, I realized that I did not want to end up like my parents. And I'm not saying that in a harsh way as I couldn't stand them or I couldn't stand being like them. It's not that. It's I wanted my life to be more. I wanted to have a life that wasn't sort of surrounded in drama and tension and addiction and all of that, right? And so I made choices when I was quite young. And I've spoken about this before in previous episodes. You can go back and have a listen. But I chose really, really, really young not to drink. I was really young. I didn't want to drink, had no desire to, and I didn't do drugs. I didn't want to do drugs. I never experimented in drugs. I've never smoked, never had a desire to do that. And as the years have gone on, I've added things to that. So I really wanted to, so when I got sort of into my later teens, I wanted to have a life where I could afford to live how I want to live. So not have money dictate what is possible for me, right? And obviously I'm not saying that I wanted to be super rich or super famous, although that would be lovely. Not famous, the rich bit. But I wanted to be able to live a life that wasn't constrained by money. So I wanted to be able to afford what I wanted to buy, and I wanted to be able to go out to a movie or have takeout if I wanted to. That's the type of money I'm talking about, which to most people seems very normal, but that is not how I grew up. We grew up. We had no money. We were very poor. Like, I had cereal for dinner, and I'd focused on that. So creating a career for myself, and that's what I did. So I knew to get to that point, I had to find something that I loved, that paid really what I wanted. And it wasn't about the monetary value again. It was more about finding a career that I really valued so that I could stay in it, and therefore I could grow and learn and earn and do all of that. And that's what I did. And then the other thing, which I added on, which took a little bit longer to get there, was looking after myself. So looking after my physical and mental health was really important. But I took longer to get there. I was probably in my mid-20s before I really realized that that's what I wanted to do. And it was a big part of everything else. And that's what I've done. So I've focused on looking after my mental health, making sure that I'm seeing a psychologist, who is fantastic, by the way. So I'm seeing my psychologist, which I started coming up to 2 years ago. So I took longer to get to that point than the rest. But really taking care of myself and sharing my story and talking to friends and opening up and being more vulnerable, that took me until I was probably in my early 20s. So I chose that, though. That is something that I really, really, really wanted to do, was to create this life where I can really live it on my terms, and it's not what my experiences thought that I would end up, right? And I think I've shared this before, but I want to share it again, and mainly because I'm so proud of it, and I want to share why I'm so passionate about this. So my psychologist, when he first sat down with me and we were talking, and actually I think it took a couple of sessions to get there, he said to me, if I was to look at your file and then meet you, I would not think you're the same person. And what he meant by that is that he would expect me to be in a certain place. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, which is this, that I would be a certain mold of my parents, right? And that's not what I am. I'm grounded. I'm self-aware, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I'm self-aware, and I'm living life on my own terms. So it's something that I've worked really hard at, and I've done that by actively choosing where I want to go. So actively choosing not to drink, actively choosing not to get involved in drugs, actively choosing to look after myself, actively choosing to go for a life where I can sustain and be happy and grow. And that's not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That is not an easy thing to do. It is really quite difficult to keep making those choices. And I've mentioned this on the previous episode that we talked about this. And part of it was peer pressure, making sure that I was looking after myself and really focusing on myself, which sounds selfish, and that's exactly what it is, and that's a good thing. But I wanted to share it with you because I think it's so important. I think so many of us go into our life and grow up and feel like we need to really just stick to the mold that we were given as kids. So what we were taught as kids, or our experiences as children, that we then replicate that as we grow older. And that could be a range of things. So that could be religion. It could be addiction, childhood trauma. It could be really horrible, like full-on trauma. It could be sort of the lower end of trauma. It could be a range of things, right? Where you feel like you have to fit in certain mold. Actually, prime example is sexuality. So people that grow up in communities that aren't so open and their experiences are told that if they don't get married to someone of the opposite sex and have X amount of children and live in a white picket fence home or something like that, then they are not living a valuable life, or they're not able to stay in the community. And that is the same as what I'm talking about. You can choose where you want to go in life, but it is an active choice and you have to be consistent and stick with it to make it happen. So it's about really pushing and consistently making sure that you are making choices that will get you to where you want to go. And it is really critically important that you stick to it if that is what you want. And that's what I did. And I could not be happier with how my life has turned out. Is my life perfect? God, no. Absolutely not. But it is really good. I'm so happy with my life. I have an incredible family. Partly as a chosen family. I have an incredible family. I have incredible friends. I have an incredible husband. I've got an incredible dog. But I have a really, really, really good life now. But I've worked for that. And you can do the exact same thing too. So I want to share that with you. I think it's really important to keep sharing this message because we only have one life. You don't want to waste it because life and the experiences that you've had so far are dictating or trying to dictate how you should live your life, because you don't need to do that. You can avoid that. So I'm going to leave you with that. Now, I'm recording in a different room this time, so you may have heard some dogs or my dog walking around. You may also have heard some trams or cars. Apologies, but I'm changing it up a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed those slight background sounds. But I hope you are safe and healthy. I hope you are looking after yourselves. I hope you have a fantastic day or night or whatever it is that you're doing. And I can't wait to talk to you in the next episode. Have a blast. I will chat to you soon. See you later.